Greetings and salutations. I had this crazy idea that I would do a video about Manjaro. I have not looked at Manjaro in at least 2 years, and I decided to install it last night because, well, a couple of reasons. First of all, Antergos, another distribution of Linux that's based on Arch, is going out of business. So I went and looked over on DistroWatch to see how Manjaro was doing, and they're doing quite well. They're number 2 right after MX Linux. Well, we talked about MX Linux a while back, so let's kind of do the same thing with Manjaro. This is not a review. This is just me poking around the system, looking at it. I'm going to get a bunch of stuff wrong. I'm going to miss a bunch of stuff. I don't use Manjaro every day. My knowledge of Manjaro and Arch Linux is very basic, so this should be a lot of fun, and you guys who are big Manjaro users can point at the screen and laugh at me and have a good time with it. So let's go ahead and just do it. So first of all, let's take a look at the web page for Manjaro. We have two options. It pops up right here. We can learn more, which scrolls the page down a little bit, and we find out there's all of this verbiage down here. I like this. What is Linux right there? Thank you, guys. Somebody needs to tell people, you know. Here are the main developers. How y'all doing? This video is no disrespect to your hard work. Don't laugh too hard. Have fun with it. So that's the learning part. Then we click over here to try Manjaro, and this confused me a little bit. Look at all the choices we've got here. All this strange stuff. What is Odroid? We got all kinds of weird things coming up here. And I don't see anything there that I really want to get into, so let's go to page 2. And now I see, well, there's KDE stable. Well, that makes sense if I want to use the KDE desktop. There is XFCE. We've got Mate there. All right, so that's getting a little better. We got OpenBox, which is kind of sort of just a window manager. Awesome is a window manager too. We got Cinnamon Spin. I have tried the Cinnamon Spin in the past. I think the last time that I tried Manjaro, it was the community-supported Cinnamon Spin that we looked at. Let me move this microphone a little bit, gang. I ordinarily never do this while I'm recording, but it's kind of, we want it a little closer there. I don't want to sound like I'm in the other room. Let's see, we got Budgie here. That's very informal video, like I told you. We got i3, that's a window manager. And let's see what else we have here. I got a whole bunch, and I'm not looking for I haven't seen my favorite yet. So we're going to keep going, and we'll keep looking here. We got Deepin. I never thought of that as a desktop. We can get the documentation. And then finally at the very end, we've got GNOME Stable. So that's the one that I chose to download. So what happens if you click on the download? Well, it goes over here, and it shows you some screenshots. And then the 64-bit version is definitely what we want. I think that's the only one we can get. Some poor fellow was looking at the web page for Linux Mint, and he saw that the architecture was AMD 64. And he actually sent me a note this morning, and he said, will this work on my Intel chip? I didn't see anything for an Intel CPU. And I actually kind of had to giggle a little bit and then go explain to him, no, that's just 64-bit architecture. AMD were the first to come up with it. It works on Intel too. Don't worry about it. So anyway, so we got all that garbage there, and we come over here, and then we go to the download page, and looks like it's coming off of SourceForge. We're not actually going to let it download, and the reason why is because I have already downloaded the thing. I mean, there's just no point. Actually, I already have it installed and set up in a virtual machine, and here it is ready for us to log in. And magically, my little avatar from the Nightfly is already there. Yeah, I mean, I've already played with this. I installed it last night. What you see here is pretty much what it looks like when you get it. I have done a few little tweaks here and there just because it's GNOME, and I like GNOME, and I like to tweak it. I will give the Manjaro team this much. They did a very nice job at coming up with a GNOME desktop that's usable right out of the box. GNOME, you have to usually go and find a bunch of extensions, and you have to put all that stuff in to make it work. And they went and got extensions. They've actually customized it nice. The theme is nice. We'll look more about that in a minute. And yes, this is running in a virtual machine, so it's going to take a little while to load. It's going to screen tear. It's going to look like crap. But that's the way I'm doing this right now, so you'll just have to deal with it. So the first thing about Manjaro that you have to understand, this is a rolling release, which means that it really doesn't matter what version you download and install. If you install all of the updates, it brings you up to wherever the release is now. That's the way Arch Linux works, and that is the way Manjaro works. Manjaro does have their own repositories, and they hold back packages a little bit from Arch. Arch is like, it's new, here it is, we don't care if it breaks something, go ahead, right? Manjaro tends to hold back a little bit more, try and preserve stability. You can get the stable version. You can run on the LTS kernel. That's what we got going here. And it seems to be working fine. This is HTOP. I had to install this. I just wanted something on the screen while I talked about it. So it's different from Ubuntu or Linux Mint like we ordinarily talk about, where we talk about versions. And then once every couple of years or so, you have to upgrade. You have to do a major upgrade, maybe even reinstall the entire system. The idea behind a rolling release is that you don't have to do that. That in itself is pretty cool. The only problem with rolling releases is that they tend to break themselves. And that's the #1 complaint that I get from Manjaro users all the time. They go, I love it, it's a great system, but it breaks. It breaks on me. And that's just the nature of rolling releases, because on one hand, you're getting all the cool new software. That's great. But you're also getting all the cool new bugs. Whereas in Ubuntu, since everything is held back a little bit, by the time they come up with a new version, they have tested all this stuff out, and it works. Whereas with rolling releases, you never know. However, I talk to people all the time that say that they don't have any problems with rolling releases. So the first thing that it's going to prompt you to do is to install updates, and that's up there. And even on the GNOME desktop, we have the notification extension installed. You know, GNOME has removed so many features that if you want to make it usable, you have to install a bunch of extensions. I know that's true, but I still like GNOME. It's my favorite desktop right now. I use it on Ubuntu. So this is PAMAC, which is a point-and-click package manager that works on Arch, and it works on Manjaro, Manjaro being based on Arch. And it's actually really cool. So when you first open up the thing, it's going to prompt you for updates. And you can click on it if you want to. And you can do it if you want. I have found that sometimes that causes issues. So what I did was I went on to the Manjaro wiki. I looked this up. And I just looked for how to do updates and set up my mirrors from a terminal, and it all came up. It's all pacman commands, which is the package manager for Arch and Manjaro, and it worked out fine. I got all the latest authorization keys, and it did exactly what it was supposed to do. But sometimes when you pointy clicky here, it doesn't seem to work. So a lot of Manjaro users have told me, hey, do it that way. That's the way I did it. So that worked out quite well. But a couple of things I wanted to point out in here that is actually really cool. So let's go into preferences. And give you my password. We go into preferences here, and this is the main thing I wanted to talk about. Here's where you can set your repositories, and like I said, I did this from a command line. It's super easy to do, but you can do it here as well. So I wanted the repositories in the United States, but it gives you access to this thing called the AUR, which is the Arch user repositories. And the Arch user repositories, they are like everything that has ever been coded for Linux. It's a community repository, and anybody who uses Arch can put stuff in there. That does mean that there's a slight element of danger there, because you never know. I mean, it's user run. You never know what somebody might try and stick in there. But generally speaking, you can find all kinds of different packages in the AUR that you ordinarily would not be able to find. So when you pull something down from the AUR, in this instance I installed Google Chrome from the AUR, then what it does is that it builds it locally. So it pulls down the source code. It builds the package and installs it locally on your machine. It takes a little bit longer to do that, of course, since you're actually building it. And so I guess the best way to put it is use the AUR only if you really need it. And most of the stuff that you need is going to be in the regular repositories and will come right down. But it's nice to have that there, especially for things like Google Chrome, or if you want the development version of Google Chrome is in here. All kinds of craziness. So let's take a look here in the AUR. We can do a search. So let's look at, I'm just going to put in Chrome. And it's, we have Google Chrome installed. Already installed Chrome GNOME shell. Thank you. That was nice. On Ubuntu, you have to do that separately. But see, now we're not going to see what's installed, but we're seeing that we could put the Chrome development version in there if we wanted to. We just let's see what else to look for. Let's look for. Here's the kind of thing that like you can't install natively in Ubuntu right now. MP3 gain. This is a little package that I always look for. In Ubuntu, they decided to take it out a while back. So if you look here in the AUR, well, boom, there it is right there. I can install it if I want to. Whereas in Ubuntu, I guess it's because it had MP3 in it or it wasn't maintained for a long time. It's a very simple little program, and what it does is it sets the average volume of a group of MP3s. So you can take your entire music collection and run it through this thing, and when you play them back, they all sound like they're the same volume level. Very powerful application. It doesn't do it with peak, it does it with average. Anyway, they removed it from Ubuntu. So the only way that I can install it on Ubuntu and Linux Mint is to go to Martin Wimpress's Launchpad site, which has a PPA, and I can hook up the PPA, or I can grab the package from the site and install it locally. That's what I do now. Whereas here, I'd just be able to pull it from the AUR. So that's actually really cool. That's one of the upsides to using Arch and Arch-based stuff, And I guess with Antergos going away now, Manjaro, if you want an easy way into Arch, this is it. Although it's not technically Arch because they use their own stuff. So what else is there to talk about? Well, we can kind of poke around here. That PAMAC is the big deal. Once you get everything updated and you get it ready to go, then you should be ready to rock and roll, and make sure to install your updates every day and hope to God something doesn't break. I have been told that what you do with Arch-based stuff is you install updates as soon as you see them. So we'll see how that goes, because I plan on maintaining this for a while. I want to see how it does. I've had a lot of people come to me and say, well, no, it's been really good lately. It doesn't break like it used to. We'll see. I give Arch people a really hard time. Arch is not my distro of choice. Mainly because I feel like Arch has an installer that is needlessly complex. And people who install Arch Linux proper directly from Arch, they tend to have an air of superiority because they can follow directions really good. And it kind of gives them a snoot factor. And I don't like that. So there's all kinds of things about. I always joke on Arch. I say the only reason that they keep the installer that difficult to use is because they want to keep the riffraff out of the community. It doesn't teach you anything about Linux, as they claim. It teaches you how to install Arch, or it teaches you how to follow directions. But that's all my opinion. So Manjaro is nice because it gives you access to that world without having to go through all that crap. As a matter of fact, the installer is quite easy to use. And one thing I noticed about the installer when I ran it was that it did not create any swap area on the system. I chose the option to erase the disk and start over. So it created one big ext4 partition, and then it didn't put any swap on the system. So I kind of thought that was interesting. See, we just get one. This is a 25 gigabyte drive here, so we get one big swap partition there, or rather ext4 partition without a swap partition. So I thought, okay, it made a nice little swap file like Ubuntu's doing these days. Nope, didn't do that either. It just didn't have any at all. Now, I know that a lot of people have this misconception where they think, well, I don't need swap in this day and age because I've got 64 gigabytes of memory in my machine, or 128. And that's nice if you do. But the thing is, the kernel still needs a little scratch area to work in. So you ought to have a little bit of swap. I mean, set aside a couple of gigabytes for swap. You can do it as a swap partition, or you can do it as a swap file, which is what I chose to do. So I just created a swap area, a swap file rather, and put it right here. And it was really nice because, you know, when I created the swap file and I used the command make swap to do that, you just create an empty file and then do, well, let's do it right, mkswap, that's the command. And what was really cool about that is when I created it, it knew that the permissions weren't right. See, you really on your swap file should have your permissions set to be read, write only for root and nobody else. It's a security thing. And it warned me of that. Whereas in Ubuntu, it doesn't. It just creates it, and then you can leave the permissions any way you want it to and mess it up. So that was kind of something that I noticed. Another thing that I noticed is that, you know, in my past videos, I talk all the time about creating your own personal bin directory within your home directory. By the way, if you hear a little noise in the background, it's my coffee pot. It's decided to come alive for some reason. It's like it has a life of its own. It does this during the day. Sits here and goes, you can hear it bubbling back there. So I create my own bin directory. I put some scripts in here, and I've left the scripts in here that will run on Manjaro. Some of them are made specifically for Ubuntu and won't run. Anyhow, the point is that it doesn't automatically recognize that it's there. You can reboot or log out, log into your heart's content. So how did I fix that? Well, what I did is I used nano to edit my bash rc file, and I scrolled all the way down to the end, and I added this line right here. What it does is it looks for that bin directory, and if it's there, then it adds bin to the front of your path statement. This is automatic in Ubuntu and Debian. This is not automatic in Arch, obviously. So I just added the same bit of code at the end because I like my bin directory. I guess in Arch they want you to put it in user local bin or somewhere else, or I don't know. It just seems to be, or you could just do that. You could do it directly. I don't know. That's how I decided to deal with that. So that was done. I don't want to really close the terminal. I got some other things to show there. So really what I need to do is exit. And let's see, what else did I want to talk about as far as like system stuff was concerned? I guess that's it for the install. I got all that in there. It was kind of interesting to see that the way Arch uses the .profile file is a little bit different. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Because if you look in Debian and Ubuntu, you will see that you've got some settings in there. It got some if statements, and it looks for your bash rc and it loads it and all that stuff. That's not what it does here. What it does is it exports a couple of really interesting things. So like the first export this is obviously for Qt applications. I know this command. So that's nice that they have configured this. In other words, they've tried to do some Qt integration with the GNOME desktop. Thank you, Manjaro team. Ubuntu doesn't bother. Very little. They don't do much with it. So then we have our editor, which our default editor is Nano. Once again, thank you. I'm a Nano user. Not a big fan of VI or Vi, whatever you want to call that. So that's pretty cool. That's what's in the profile for this particular setup. I like the colors. Don't you? Isn't that pretty cool, the colors in the terminal? I don't know whether I like the background color, but I didn't change any of that. I just made it a little bit bigger and turned off the menu bar. That's all I did. So we've covered a lot of ground already. We're doing really good. This video might actually be cool. It might actually get posted. You might actually get to see it. Because if it sucked too bad, I wasn't going to put it up. So if you're seeing it, that means that I went, okay, that's not too bad. So the nice thing here about this GNOME spin that they have on Manjaro, you get the latest GNOME. This is really the latest GNOME desktop. And the latest GNOME desktop is actually really cool because even though they have removed a lot of features, like they turned off active desktop and people go, well, that's an extension now. You can turn that right back on. As a matter of fact, I did. It doesn't come this way. I did this. I just wanted to see how that extension worked. Works fine. Same thing in Ubuntu. What is it? 1904. We looked at that. So it's the same kind of deal. It's the same desktop. What I wanted to do was get here so I could go over here and go to About and show you that we are on GNOME 3.32.1, which is like the latest and greatest. And the people who did this from Manjaro, they really did a nice job, because GNOME, when you install it, if you would just install generic GNOME, is damn near useless. There's not a whole lot that you can do with it. So they did some, let's go look at tweaks here and just look at the different things that they've done. I like some of their tweaks, and some of their tweaks I don't, to be quite honest. I'll tell you which ones they are as we roll through here. So yeah, I like my animations. Love the appearance. I like the theme. The only thing that I had a problem is that it clashes with some of the extensions. We'll take a look at that in a minute, because I was trying to figure out how to configure open weather here. Okay, so there's open weather. And I was trying to configure it, and I couldn't find the buttons because the theme clashed. But that's okay. So if we look at extensions here, you can see what we've got installed. We've got this application menu installed. Now, I'm not a huge fan of this. Let's see what it looks like if I turn it off. It's on. It's still on, even though I turned it off. Oh, that's right, because we have one down here. It's the arc menu. We have to turn both those off. So turn that one off and turn that one off. And this should put me back to activities, which it does, which is fine. But I'm not a huge fan of that. I also noticed that, let's see if this works now that I turn the menu off. This, for some reason, on this dash to dock thing right here, is not showing me everything that's in the system. It's only showing me what's here. So this isn't showing me applications, which I don't know whether I like that or not. Anyway, we'll turn this back on because it's on in the system, so we'll just leave it on. We want it to look the way it was supposed to look. See, over here on the Ubuntu version of Dash to Dock, and they do have their own customized launcher here that they've used the Dash to Dock plugin. You see everything that's installed on the system, right? That's the normal GNOME functionality. That's the way it always works. And it's a little different here. But these two may look the same, but they are not the same. This Ubuntu version is their own spin of the Dash to Dock thing, and it's made to act more like the Unity launcher. They did that on purpose. So anyhow, let's see. I mean, I do kind of like the theme, the appearance of the thing. I like the icon set. But I'm kind of used to looking at Ubuntu with the old ambience theme and their humanity icons, or whatever they call them. But this is kind of nice. A lot of the newer icons, to me, look like they are... they look too much alike. I like gaudy icons. I like things with different shapes and different colors that really jump out at you. So that's what... we got some startup stuff in here. Got the check AUR there. So basic, but well thought out. And we have all the extensions. So let me show you those clashes I was talking about. See, if I go over here to open weather, where is it? It's down the list, dummy. There we go. So I'm going to open this up, and we're going to look at the settings. I sat here forever, and I was like, well, where's the settings? And maybe you can see it, and maybe you can't, but they're here. The contrast is so low between those that I looked at this for a while going, I don't understand. I know they should be there. And the only reason I found it was I clicked on it where it should be there. I don't think that's particularly a Manjaro thing, though. I think that's the theme. But look at this. We have all of these lovely, there's the workspace indicator there. We have all of these lovely extensions that come installed, and you can play with them if you want to, and you can make it do what you want it to do. So that's pretty awesome. I was able to import all of my regular stuff. If you're coming from an Ubuntu, Linux Mint kind of world, I noticed for some reason or other that I imported my face file. So if we go in here and we look at Can you open up? Thank you. Let's go ahead and show hidden files. You'll see that this little Nightfly avatar file there, that's Donald Fagen avatar, that is in a file called .face. Ordinarily, to make that transferable from machine to machine, I just drag the file in or bring it in through SFTP or whatever, and then I put it on the system, and it just sees it. But for some reason, it didn't work all the way in here. So what I had to do was actually go into the Manjaro settings user account thing and set that again myself. That's another thing we need to talk about, is when you first install this and you open up LibreOffice, you'll notice that your spelling doesn't work and your thesaurus isn't there, and you're going, whoa, what's going on with that, right? Well, it's because what you have to do is you have to come over here. Let's just type in settings. Then we go to Manjaro settings here. No, that's not what I wanted. No, 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 no. Opening up Google Hangouts. Yes, I did sync my Google Chrome instance. I don't know why I did that. I don't know why I got two of those, but I did. I actually opened that up too. So you have to come in here to the language, and you have to install it. It'll tell you if there's anything available, and then you say yes, go ahead and install it. So that's what I did. As far as user accounts are concerned, here's where you can set them. You can look at that. You can set your avatar. You can choose your picture there. You can also do that from the regular. It's in two places in here. So if you go here, and then we open up the settings for GNOME, and the last thing I was in was user accounts. You click on there, now you can choose your picture. So all I did was choose .face again, went and found it and chose it, and then re-imported it, and now it shows up everywhere, even on the login screen and all that stuff. No idea what the deal was with that. I find it interesting that when you go into the Manjaro settings here that you see nobody. Nobody is a user that is set up on pretty much every Linux system, and nobody is a user who has no privileges. He is, or she, we don't know who nobody is. We don't want to be sexist about it, now do we? That user is used by programs to do certain things. That if you have a program that needs to run as a user, but you don't want that user to have any privileges at all, nobody steps in. That's how that works. That's what that does. And they show it here, which is kind of weird. Great tool. Great tool in here. This is the Kernel Tool. This is one of the things I've always liked about Manjaro. This is not my first go-around with Manjaro, people. I've tried it several times in the last maybe 3-4 years. So, yes, I do have like it a little bit here. We can see what kernel we have running. We are on, let's see, where is it? What kernel are we running? Let me look over here real quick. And of course, I had to add Control-Alternate-T to the keyboard bindings because I am so used to that, it's not even funny. We are on an LTS kernel for sure. So yes, we're on 419.42-1 Manjaro. Cool. And that's where we want to be. We want to be on an LTS kernel. So let's see. We can go all the way back to 3.16 here available. Isn't that amazing? Now, this is the one that we're running right there. It's an LTS. It's a recommended kernel. We just leave that alone. Leave that alone. The 5 kernel's got a lot of neat features in it, but it's still new. You know, I like to be on older 4. Let's see, on Ubuntu right now. What is it? 4. We're on 4.16, 4.18, 4. What is it? I don't know. I only look at it every day, but I can't remember. So let's open up. No, I want to open up the terminal for Ubuntu, the host machine, because I want to do uname R. So we are on 4.15.0, and this is revision 50. that is the long-term support kernel for Ubuntu 18.04. So we get a little further ahead here with Manjaro being on like 4.19, right? Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's anything else to talk about here. No, it just is what it is. There was one thing that I saw that made me want to retch, though, and I do have to complain about this. So if we come over here, bumping the microphone with my face because it's kind of sort of in the way, and we open up Office, and boy, this is slow to respond. You notice we've got all the LibreOffice stuff there. That's perfectly all right, no problem. But look what happens when I scroll down here. Really? Really? No, thank you. I don't want no Microsoft stuff. Manjaro people. So, in conclusion, the big complaint that I've heard from people who use Manjaro is that it breaks itself. My past experience with Manjaro has been that you can set it up, you can get it going, you think this is the greatest, this is a really good distro, you really like it. I'm like, it runs good, blah, 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 you're having a good time with it, and then an update comes in and it breaks it. That is the nature of rolling releases. So what I intend to do is to just keep this in my virtual machine farm for a while and run it and see how long it is until it breaks. I think that I probably gave myself a leg up because I didn't just click on the updates and install them from there. I went ahead and went to the Manjaro wiki. I looked at the update notifications to see if there was anything that I needed to know. And then I also went and looked up precisely how to set my mirrors, get the latest authorization keys, and do an update with one command. So that's in there. You just go look for it and then you run it. Matter of fact, it should still be in the terminal, right? Since I actually used it. And we have a very small bash history. I should be able to go back to it. So, and I've got a couple of updates here, and I've done a couple of other things with the system, and I've edited the bash RC, and I installed plugins for gedit so I could make it bigger. So this was it right here. This one goes sudo pacman mirrors. What that does here is it says, I want for this country, please set my mirrors to this country. And it found that what country I was in. And then it just did a full update of the system. And that simple command took care of everything as far as putting it all to new stuff package-wise. So we'll see how this goes. We'll see what happens as we roll through and how it does. But generally I'm impressed, and I can see why it would be number 2. And you know, I'm always looking for that alternative, even though I'm quite happy with Ubuntu and Linux Mint. But one day, they may go away. Ubuntu might go poof, or something might happen where you can't use it. It could happen. You got to have alternatives. This one's looking pretty good. Better than straight Debian, for me. I find Debian to be a little bit arcane in some ways, whereas this seems to be pretty cool as well. In different ways. Does that make sense? I doubt it. If I'm not making sense, it's time for me to shut up. Thanks for hanging out with me and watching the video. I certainly do appreciate it. Give it a thumbs up. It helps. And also, if you like what you see and you're new to the channel, why don't you go ahead and click that subscribe button that should be popping up real soon down here on the lower right side of the screen. Check out Easy Linux on the web at EzeeLinux.com. That's where everything comes together. You can also check out EzeeTalk, which is our very own forum. And you can check out Easy Linux on Facebook. Give it a like if you are a Facebook user. That helps out too. So the big question is, will I continue to keep Manjaro going in a virtual machine? Will I install it on hardware somewhere and maybe use it that way for a while? Stay tuned.